Hi, I'm David Betts and this is my latest video topic, and today we're covering business planning. Don't forget to follow me on social media channels so you don't miss future topics which may be of interest to you. Now, business planning is an interesting topic in business subjects because it's one of the most searched topics on Google, but actually it's one of the least accomplished topics that business owners actually work on. So they all want to know what it's all about, but nobody actually implements it. And you know what? The biggest gain you can make in business and the biggest wins are when you've got a substantial plan in place and you keep track to it. Will give you the biggest results back into the business. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to take you through the stages in preparing a plan to meet your business needs. So here we go. The first thing is to realize that there's goals and there's tasks and there's the vision. So the vision is the big goal. Below that, we have the stepping stones towards the goal, and that's the way towards the vision. Tasks are then categories below the goals, which is what you need to complete to get to those stepping stones. So let me give you my take on the way that I usually lay this out for people. And it works like this. We can say that this is where we are today. And we can also look to say, this is our vision. So that's where we want to be going. And this is typically 10 to 25 years would be a typical figure that we would set. Now, between now and then, there's no point in just saying, oh, we're going to be a great business, we're going to be huge, we're going to be whatever, if we don't put measure points on the way. So when you run a marathon, you have measures of saying how far you've gone. You don't wait till you get to the final step. You can see you're progressing and you can check your speed. In business, you can check your performance. So in here, we set in checkpoints. And these checkpoints are goals. And typically, we will want 90-day goals. So this is what are we going to achieve in the next 3 months or 90 days. And then we'd have 12 months, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. And these would be a fairly typical positioning to put in your business. The reason we have these is we want to see that we're on track to hit the vision in the timescale that we want. And we'll come back to why in a moment. If you don't set these, there's every chance you're going to drift off track. Now, just to make a point here, these intervals would be set to a kind of an average growth company. If you were in a very high growth company, you might very well need to gear this up. So if you were doubling a business size in a year, you'll get 100% growth, you'd probably want to have a 30-day plan instead of a 90-day plan. You need to review your 12-month plan will become a 6-month plan, because that way you can adapt it. Because as you get closer to your goal, moving forward through the plan, you'll find you need to keep more intensely in touch with it to keep everything on track. So this is our progression. This is what we're going through. And this is the fundamentals of what we're heading for. What we now need to do is to look at the detail of that as to how we actually get there. So let's start off. What's a vision? This is set way in the future. So it doesn't want to be something you're going to do in the next couple of years. It wants to be something you can work towards over the coming years. And that's why we say generally it wants to be significant. It needs to be at least 10 years, and it wants to tax you. It doesn't want to be, we're going to grow 5% year on year and work out what it's going to be. It's going to be, we're going to grow 20-odd% year on year or 30-odd% year on year, and set it then as a target. So it wants to be a multiple increase on where you are now. Stretch your imagination. Think of the best ever you think you could be and go for that. Let's aim for the stars, and worst case is we'll still hit the moon. The next thing is the goal. The goal is a progress check, so we know how we're on track at these stages in here. For a goal to be effective, we really want it to be smart testable. So is it specific? Is it measurable? Is it attainable? Is it realistic? And is it time frame limited? If you can do those tests, those 5 tests on it, and know where you stand, it's something which you and your team are going to understand how you're getting on with. And again, will help your progress. Not every goal can be smart tested, but the majority hopefully will be in your plan. So then we move on to application. And the first thing to say here is change isn't linear. And the reasons for that are a numberfold. But if you think of it this way, in the good old days, before the markets collapsed, when you put money into a savings account, you'd put, say, the same amount in each month, and they'd give you interest on it, which is proportional to the amount of money in the account. So the more money you get, the more interest you get, and you get a double win. Now, business is like that, but it's up another level. And the interesting thing is that what's actually happening is you set a goal on a particular area of the business. So let's say you set a goal for your production department to be more efficient. Now, by becoming more efficient, there's every chance that sales will be able to sell more because there will be some benefits in your product. And purchasing will be able to buy cheaper because they're buying more volume. So you get this multiple effect of adding on the differences, which will give you a net gain in the business. So let's see if we can represent this graphically. This is your period, it could be monthly, whatever. So you're doing here, you're doing something to improve the business. You're making production more efficient. And you keep working forward, and every period you'd make it more efficient, and you'd grow it and you'd track it. What gets measured gets done. So if we start tracking the efficiency, people realize that's important, they'll work to improve it. In the second period, you then have a goal that you set your purchasing department, which they then need to purchase at better prices. But also they get the benefit of increased volume will help them to get an even better price. And this produces, going forward, will produce you a linear improvement in the business turnover, which is great. But here's the real thing. This is the winner. If we put this more in touch with reality, we get an exponential growth. So in the first period, we just got this one thing. We just get the benefit from that period. The second period, we've got the benefit of the two, gives us a small gain. And this grows over time. So what we've got is this growth coming up here. And what we can say is, this is what we work for. This is what we've gained. So it's a huge addition to the net change we make in the business. And this is one of the reasons why we have difficulty estimating how much we can achieve in the longer term, because we can outperform our expectations and we have difficulty working out how much we can actually achieve in the long term. So we look at this is an exponential growth, and this is the real winner. Interestingly, we're not so good at doing the short-term judgments as how long things take, because we forget the day job. And we start going, oh, I could do this and I could do that. It's a bit like if your boss comes to you and said, oh, David, could you just do this for me? And you think, yeah, okay, fine, I'm being asked to do it, I'll do it. But what you're going to do, the time you spend doing that job, you've got to find that job time from somewhere else. So if it's going to take you 5 hours, you've got to find 5 hours of work you're either going to slip or you're going to give to somebody else to do. And that's the problem, is that we say, oh yeah, I could do this. It's only 10 hours of work in a week. I can do it. But you forget the 10 hours of work, you've got to move backwards. And of course, if you're on a plan, that's going to keep moving backwards and that's not going to work. So this is the pictorial way of where we're going. So now let's look at the interim goals. So the vision has been set well in the future. We've defined where we're going to put the interim goals. Okay. And now we need to look at the detail. So I'm going to give you some example in here, and this is a made up example. It's not very aggressive, but it just helps you see the principles. So we set a goal to grow your business from 5 million, from 500,000 turnover in 20 years. As I say, it's not very aggressive. is a fairly subtle goal to actually set. The question really to start with is, what would you set as your first year's goal? Because if you take it as a linear equation, you can just think about what we had on the yellow building blocks. You should be able to smash that. And what we want to do is to set the first part of our planning to be realistic and see what we can achieve. Because actually, if we achieve the goal early, nobody's going to be upset. Okay, so that's the first thing, is we need to decide what our interim goals, as this, are going to be on our journey. Once we've set them, we've got this problem about what's going to be the most dominant, what's going to be the numbers that are going to be realistic. And like I say, the typical problem people would do is they will overestimate what they can do in the short term, and they will underestimate what they can do in the long term. So what are the ones we're going to set? Now, the first thing we need to think about here is we need to plan before we can do. So if we're going to have a new marketing strategy, we've probably got to think about who we're going to target, how we're going to target them, prepare the materials to go with it. You've probably written off a month before you actually can do anything about sending it out to the market. So that's a month with no return on the investment of the time. It's subsequent months that you actually get that return. So we need to think about that as well. Continuing with our example, we've now said about defining the goals for these interim periods. Each of those goals are going to require activity. So if we want to grow the profitability of the business, we might want to do things like improve the marketing. We might want to improve the sales process and the efficiency of sales. All sort of things that you actually could use as part of that plan. So we need to think about the tasks we're going to set us to do to achieve that. And the other thing, of course, then is actually how many hours have you got that you can free up in your calendar to allow you to work on the goals? Because if you don't free up any time, you're going to have things overwhelm you, and the plan will fall by the side because it will get left as the one thing nobody else is going to kick you about. It's only you that's going to lose out. So let's move on. We're going to go plan now to grow from 500,000 to 5 million in 20 years. And from that, I've picked a number to start with. For a 12-month objective, increase the turnover by £50,000. So that would be to 500 to 550,000. Sort of goals that you could set to achieve that: increase the average sale value by 4%. Devise and implement a new marketing plan. So the question we get out of this is, what is the time required and the priorities for each of these? Because you're going to have to do one before the other. There will be a reason you're going to pick one. Generally, which is the easy win, is a very good one. But sometimes things have very long lead times and you need to get them started sooner. So this is the fundamentals of the plan and where we're starting from. So now let's have a look at the plan. This is a small section out of a Gantt chart plan, and we're actually only showing the first 10 weeks of it, and we're only showing the first top where we've got 2 goals. So the first goal, increase average value sale by 4%, one of the goals we said, and we had to think up some tasks to do with it. Sales team training in upselling. So McDonald's thing, would you like fries with that? Would you like an apple pie with that? They've always got something to say, would you like, would you like, would you like? That's very, very valid thing to train your sales team in. So if we take that as the first task, which then subdivides down into these other things here, we've got to devise the training materials we're going to use. We've got to deliver the training. We've got the sales team will need some form of measure to see how they're performing. So personal average pound sale, key performance indicator weekly. So that will be a very reasonable thing to put in there. And what we're saying is to devise the sales training materials, we're going to take 4 weeks to do that. And it's going to take 3 hours in each of those weeks. Deliver the training can't happen till after then, which we're saying is an 8-hour session in itself. And then sales team, personal average pound sales KPI per week, we're saying was coming this point here. We want it finished before the training because then we can train them on that as well. So we're saying it's 4 hours in week 1 and 2 hours in the subsequent weeks. Now we come to the second bit, range of sales bolt-on additions. So what can we do here? Define what the bolt-ons are. What is it we're going to actually get the sales team offer? And create sales materials for the bolt-on. How are they going to promote it? So we're going to start the define the bolt-ons quite soon, at the same time as we start up the top here. And then we're going to do the actual materials which go with it to follow it up. So again, we're still finishing this before the training. Now, all these hours that we've put in here, you may have noticed summarized down the bottom here. And this is the real, one of the key points in creating a plan, is people forget how many hours they can spare. So if you flip that on its head and you define how many hours you can spare, you can then manage the plan construction to achieve it. So you can see here, we've got 7 hours in week 1, we've got 10 hours in week 2, and we've got 7 hours in week 3, etc. 10, is that acceptable or not? And this is only something that you can decide yourself. If I have a guidance for you, the biggest challenge people have is in setting themselves too much time commitment to get the plan done. So it's perfectly normal, unfortunately, for somebody to create their first plan and to get nowhere near through it. Now, one of the indicators you can have that you're doing that is that if you look over the 13 weeks, you'll see that the front end, I mean, I have examples where people come to me with a plan and we put the hours in and they're talking about 30 hours a week. Well, that's their day job. But what you'll find is that they'll be heavily weighted at the front end and they'll go down to nothing by the time we end the quarter period. We'll be down to sort of 1 and 2 hours. That shows to me that they're overestimating what they can achieve in the first few weeks. The second one, set up a new marketing plan. This is more difficult to smart test because the measurement of it is going to be tricky, but it's a very valid thing to do. So we've got confirm target market, define current marketing strategies, and establish, test and measure for marketing strategies. So we've put these in here. So exactly the same principle, and you can see the whole lot flow through. So this is, to me, a simple, workable plan. Yes, you can get project planners, which you can use. The problem is, unless you're using project planners on a regular basis, you're going to have to learn to use it. If you've got to learn to use it, you'll probably never achieve this degree of competency. You could do this on a piece of paper, only I'd suggest to you that a spreadsheet is far easier to move things around, because if that 10 hours was a problem, then I could say, well, perhaps we'll shift this out here. We'll move, perhaps spread this over 2 weeks, move it around. What's our limit? So this is a very important part of the plan that most people will overlook. Don't overlook it. Add it into your plan. It's immensely powerful. So this is the plan. The second stage is making it happen. So what we need to start with is managing the plan. And it doesn't need to be a senior person because it's more of an admin task to actually do it. What you must do is assign that responsibility to one person to manage the plan, because they will then keep it updated. They will keep people chased. Now, in the early days, you really need to chase people to make sure they do the work, because otherwise it will get put on the back burner. It will never be top of their list. The plan progress manager is actually an administrative role. So you could actually have just an admin assistant to do it. What you've got to do is to give them really firm backing. So if somebody says, oh, I haven't got time for that, it's not going to happen, you've got to go in and you've got to really put the pressure on the person who's saying they can't do it. Because initially we want to encourage them to change. If they won't change, we have to take further action later. More on that. The other real gem here is you schedule a weekly plan progress meeting. That's set in the calendar for everybody. It's immovable, it's fixed. And every week it's going to run. And actually, it has to run. And if somebody's not going to be there for a reason, they have to appoint somebody to stand in their place. Now, this is interesting because if somebody has to deputise for them, they're probably not going to know any detail that they get asked, which probably means that the planning session is going to give that person more work to do, or give the person who's deputising for more work to do. So actually, it's kind of like a penalty for not going to the meeting, especially when people are not on plan, things are slipping, and then they find there's something more important things to do in their view. What they've got to learn is it's not more important. This is one of the most important tasks they need to do in the business. Moving along, what's the structure of the planned progress meeting? It's extremely simple and it's extremely powerful. It doesn't need to be full of waffle and talk and discussion. The plan progress manager basically asks one question of every person. Are any of your planned tasks ahead or behind schedule? What you're really asking is, are they off plan? And if the answer is no, congratulations, well done. Keep up the good work. And this is obviously publicly in the meeting, so everybody can see that you're congratulating somebody. If the answer is yes, the second part of the question is, okay, now, what are the corrective actions that you're taking to rectify this? And what we end up with then is two situations. If it needs further discussion, it's outside the meeting, because if you've got 10 people in that meeting, you'll probably find that 7 of them have no interest in knowing what's going on in that department or no direct relevance to them. So if you discuss it now, those people are going to think, oh, flipping it, wasting my time. I could have done something useful. So you don't discuss it in the meeting. And this is another great reason why having an admin person to run the meeting and to organise it is better, because they don't know the detail. There is no point in them knowing the detail. They just want to know, is it on schedule or not? If there's things that need doing, get their commitment to having a solution by that date. So they will tell you who they've got to meet with, what they've got to decide, and they tell you that within the next week, before the next meeting, when they're going to come back with an updated plan to tell you what they're doing. This is the gem that you've got to follow. If you cut corners here, the whole lot will go out the window very, very quickly. Plan progress. The plan is the biggest impact on company growth. It requires 100% participation, and any dissent should not be tolerated. You need to address it. The progress meeting, maximum 20 or 30 minutes, no more than that. If you're going more than that, it's waffle, which is code for excuses. This is why I haven't done what I'm supposed to do. Just fix the problem. The real thing here is it's not about blame, it's about resolution, because the thing which we want to treat as fixed in time is the goal over that 90-day period. And if we have to put more resources in to make it happen, let's do it. Because as soon as we start to slip that 90-day plan goal, the whole lot goes out the window. Reward people who keep on plan to the track of the plan, and actually remove people who refuse to engage. And this sounds harsh, but you know what? These are the rotten apples which are going to totally scupper your business performance. And if they're not prepared to work in your way, maybe they should go and work somewhere else. And if you start putting the pressure on them about performing and what you expect from them, they will pretty soon realize they're heading to a disciplinary if they don't do it. And they'll probably make the decision for themselves. So from there, wrapping this up, poor planning promotes poor performance. There's another couple of P's going there very often, but I've moderated it for this workshop. If you don't plan thoroughly, you won't get the best performance out of your business. And that's the thing I'm going to leave you with today. Planning isn't a complex subject, but there are some strict rules you need to follow. And if you can follow those rules, you will get results in your business, guaranteed. I hope you found that workshop useful to you and it's brought you some benefits that you can take away. Watch the video again to pick up the finer points, and love you to like and follow me for future events. I'm David Betts, business coach, wishing you all the best in your business. All the best.